Hey everybody, welcome back. Today I've got a great video for you, and it's on this topic of AI and retirement. So, we are at the forefront of a really major technical revolution, and we need to get ahead of it. And what better topic to talk about it than retirement? But before I do, please like and subscribe if you're coming here for the first time. It helps me. I love doing these videos about retirement. The reason I started it was because I was going through my own retirement questions. And I just decided, well, I'm doing the research anyways, I might as well try and share it with you. So this is just one topic that I want to share with you about. So let's get to the video. This was inspired to me by a subscriber. He actually is on the precipice of his own retirement questions. And he actually has a background in AI. So Mr. J.A., thank you very much. If you're watching this video, I attribute all of this to you. And at some point, if this gentleman would like to get his name out there and also what he's done, I'd be happy to share it with you once I get the word that he wants to be shared with. But today, we're going to walk through a set of scenarios that I built in Claude. So this gentleman actually turned me on to this by telling me that I should use Claude. Claude is great for mathematical computations. Also, it's I believe the AI engine that you use to write code. And I was really impressed with what I saw. Now, I use 3 different AI engines: Grok, OpenAI, and now Claude. And I have to say, I paid for OpenAI a $20 free subscription for the month, and I was really impressed with the results. Grok too, I'm very impressed with those results. So I would say those 3, for me at least, work great. You choose your flavor. I will say this, I think it's worth paying for a year's subscription of this stuff. There's a bevy of different scenarios you can use AI for beyond just retirement. And when something requires a lot of computations, you're gonna run out of time, like compute cycles as they call it. So just pay for it. I'm at almost the end of this week because I've been trying to make this video, but it resets every week. So at least you get more. It basically is like a utility. It throttles you. But regardless of that, I have enough to maybe share some things with you. So let me tell you just a couple of introductory thoughts, and then we'll go into the actual demo. So AI, I think the reason why it hasn't caught on so well for retirement is really that I think people just don't trust the output. And I can understand why. It's just, I don't think we fully understand how AI works. To the layman, actually to the general public, it's very simple. It's just a search interface. But I think that's the issue, is that it's kind of maybe more like gimmicky. But underneath the covers, if you kind of know how to tease out what you want, it really is a tremendously powerful tool. It's not always often accurate, but you can get it accurate. And that's the key to what I want to talk about today and show you. You have to train the engine like a personal robot, just like a child. You have to train this to the subject matter at hand. And what I did was I took what's called a protocol process, a protocol document, that teaches it how to do what I want to do about retirement. I found there was a couple things about why AI may actually be an app killer. One is that this generates responses to you on the fly, as opposed to something like an app, like a Boldin. Boldin is all baked in the application. Somebody has to develop it from requirements that a product manager gives them. With AI, what we're doing is we're teasing it with questions, and it's giving you responses based upon research it's done out there on the marketplace. Not the marketplace, but on the internet. So therein lies a difference. The only thing is that with Boldin, what I love about what they've done is that they actually give you a way to think about your retirement with many of the different aspects that are required to be successful, like R&D, Social Security, when you take that, optimization of your tax is highly critical, Medicare, all those kinds of things, because the calculator is trying to figure out, you're going to have all these kinds of things coming downstream in the future, plus taxes. What's the best way to manage your money accordingly when it's, you're kind of working with it? So that's what's great about a calculator like a Boldin. But with the AI, you can kind of teach it all those things. And on top of which, AI is continually refining itself, because as long as you tell it where the information is, it's going to keep refining the model that you are creating. So let's get into a little bit. Basically, the approach that I took to AI is the same. And the way I'm designing this is my own personal CFP, or my personal robot. You know, one of the things I've discovered about the retirement conversation with other retirees out there who have already done it, or, you know, really early. A lot of them don't want to, there's two emotional states I've seen they don't want to talk about, which is they don't want to be compared and they don't want to be judged, or most people don't. And that's why I think using a CFP is so productive, because you can go to somebody who's a professional expert in this space, and then they can teach you what they know based upon experience that they've had in the past. So with that, with all the bevy of experience, they can kind of develop plans to match your requirements of retirement. So that's what I'm going to show you here today. Basically, the way we should design our AI engine is to be like a general bot. Now, as you're looking on this screen here, I basically fed it what's called a protocol document, and this protocol document is tuned to ask questions of the user so that it can get the information required to process. Now, you can do one of two things. This is for if I just gave this to somebody, they wanted to gear up their own robot, that's fine. You can use this. But the better thing to do is in order to build a baseline of your retirement plan, you really just need your assets, you need your expenses, you need, you know, just everything related. When do you plan to take Social Security? What do you want to do for long-term care? Try and answer those questions as best as possible. Put that in a tabular format that a system can read, right? So maybe you put the, you know, whatever, you put the question and the answer on 2 columns. And let it ingest that along with your asset positions. And tell the system as much about you as possible, even your health. That's the next step, a version that I'm going to put into my robot, is that I'm going to give it statistics around different kinds of you know, longevity of life, really. Like, what are the, you know, I have some actuarial data, I think was given to me by a gentleman from the insurance company on longevity of life and the probability of what you are going to live after a certain age. The other thing is, and I'm trying to get more of this information, is at what age is what typically people are expiring at. All that information can be very helpful to the engine to make decisions for you, right? And that's what AI is perfect at. It can make these relationships and make the mathematical computations to arrive at the number that we're interested in. Again, all of that is just statistical, right? It's just the probability of something happening. That's really what we're interested in. We want a high probability of success. So once you go through the questionnaire, basically you put in all the inputs, like, you know, other income sources. You have pensions, annuities, windfalls. I'm not going to go through that all here, because what I asked it to do is, that is my plan. Actually, the questions that were put here were behind the scenes is my plan. I actually asked it to change the data. So when you do that, basically we come across a fictitious user by the name of David and Lisa Martinez. And David and Lisa Martinez, I made a slight mistake here, but what I asked it to do was make a new a production level report. It's a professional report, which I'm going to show you in a moment. But what I asked the engine to do when I asked it to clean up the numbers was compare it to the Fidelity benchmark of net income and net worth that I fed it originally in my protocol document. And so what you see on the screen here are those metric numbers based upon the benchmark. And it will tell you, well, in this case, it's saying something about the demo that I'm making for you, but that's not important. What I really was honing in on is these kinds of numbers. I have the Fidelity benchmarks in there. Now, one of the things I trained the model to do was to create a professional report. And I was originally asking it to do it on the screen, but surprisingly, it gave it to me in Excel format, which I ended up really liking more. So here's that spreadsheet. At the end of the questions that it asks you, it builds your baseline. And David and Martinez's baseline is this spreadsheet. I taught my robot to make a client snapshot, net worth comparison, retirement readiness plan. In my particular plan, I'm very concerned about FAFSA, so I started to ask it that. So with this fictitious person, it put all that information in there. The things that we're also curious about are Roth conversions and action plans for areas that we have weakness, which is kind of what in Boldin they do too. They measure your weaknesses and where you're strong. What I'm not showing you here is the Monte Carlo simulator, but I do have a Monte Carlo simulator that is part of the output. If you run through the entire profile, it's going to generate a report with the Monte Carlo and your probability of success. I'm going to start working a little bit harder on that area to give more of like, what I've asked it to do is give the kind of statistical breakdowns on the curve, like 90% probability, 80% probability, like what fits in those categories. And the other thing also is I've taught it about withdrawal strategies like guardrails, risk-based guardrails, 4% rule. There's another one called Vanguard Dynamic. I've taught it all that, and it basically, you select which kind of withdrawal plan you want to use, and it's going to optimize your plan for you that way. And so in this case, Lisa Martinez, we get a report of economic versus, what's it called, economic and planning net worth, right? It's the amount that you have to invest and not invest. How ready are we for retirement? By age 30, our salary should be a certain number, and because we're a certain age, it's saying that your salary should be 6 times your multiple. So it's saying that our savings is a little bit below. It gives you some stats like that. That's not a great number I want to learn. But in my case, what I was interested here is some of the FAFSA information, strategies to maximize aid. And this is amazing. I'm not versed at all with FAFSA. I asked it to go out there and learn about it. Now it's telling me some interesting stuff. So I'm actually going to try and implement some of this as well. And I'm going to start teaching it more about 529s and FAFSA. This is the other part that I think is just golden, the retirement Roth conversion calculator. It tells you kind of a schedule, what you should do. Obviously, this can kind of, it's going to change every year, but it tells you that kind of information. And then it gives you a summary, an action plan summary, right? So we're on track. We're 1.5 times above the median. I don't know why it's doing that. And then we have some gaps and we're above average. So it's basically giving you an entire summary. Now, this can drill down even further. And that's one thing I wanted to share with you, is something that I found on the Reddit website for the Boldin folks. And what I found was this question that was posed this morning. My company's 401k offers and plan conversion. Hopefully you can see this. I'll actually print this out and show it on the screen separately. But basically this question is about 2 cases, whether or not you should maximize your 401k or do a hybrid 401k and Roth. This person's 62 and he has some time left to keep contributing. So I actually said, well, that's an interesting thing, because he wanted to know how to do that in Boldin. And the only way I could think about doing that is 2 scenarios. And to be perfectly honest with you, when I was thinking through that, how I would do it, it's actually pretty time consuming. So I said, wow, this is a great idea for to ask the question of ChatGPT or of AI. So I asked Claude that. As you can see, I took it and it misunderstood me because I actually took his numbers and put him into the system. This is the person who asked the question. So I asked it to redo it in relation to the numbers that were on their demo version. So it did it. And what I found to be really exciting by the answer is the following. So if you see here, here's the analysis for the demo client, right? So we changed the original numbers that the person had asked about, like his income, et cetera, to match ours. And AI did that, and it comes out with two cases in a tabular format and compares the 2 based upon the tax rates. And this is what it came up with. In all cases, with the exception of the 30% tax rate, case 1, which is to do that hybrid approach, is the most optimal one. And it tells you kind of where and what you need to do for that scenario. That to me is the power of AI. Try to do that in another application, and like I said, we would have been spending hours trying to gear that up and configure it. And on top of which, because of the uncertainty of how to do it, it becomes even more challenging. Now, am I saying that AI is correct? No, but I think it understood me correctly. And there's ways we can backtrack and test this, because these kinds of questions will come up further in the world. And you know, that question in and of itself is, the reason I picked it is it's somewhat straightforward, because you're asking a question of, like, my income this year. I have two opportunities, hybrid or non-hybrid, and I want to maximize. I have two constraints. I don't want to go into a higher tax bracket if it's less than 3% is what or if it's greater than 3%, I think is what he said. So that part of the question confused me, but AI certainly understood it. So what am I trying to say to you now about AI in general? Well, I think it's something that we need to embrace. And if you can do it right, it's just another kind of data point in the whole retirement question. I think that you as a user or a person that's looking into your own retirement goals, you need a number of these calculators. I use FiCalc, that app, as I mentioned. I use Boldin. I'm going to start using this much more. But what I've decided to do is I'm going to start using Claude and ChatGPT together as two different agents and see what kind of answers they come up with. The other thing also is there's I track something on a spreadsheet for all portfolio optimization. And even that is something that I feed into ChatGPT and Claude, like my allocation strategies and what that looks like across, you know, the amount of risk that I'm willing to take. It actually gives me great advice on that regard, because it's actually going out to the marketplace to see what are best practices for people at certain ages, like what should their asset allocation be. And then, you know, you can ask it directed questions like today, it told me that I'm way too heavy in equities and I need to start ratcheting down the amount of exposure to technology, which kind of makes me cringe a little, because tech is what got me to where I'm at. But at the same time, I do recognize I am getting older and I better stop taking on so much risk. And so I started to wean down the amount of monies that I have in kind of risky assets and putting it into less risky assets. And you know, the next question it asks me is, once you do what I've told you, give me back the positions, I'll tell you where we are. So I'm going to probably end up doing that. But that's what I found to be so amazing about this solution. And I think it's something that we all need to start looking at much more closely. And pretty soon, this is something that Elon had stated. The application, like an application like Excel or Boldin, will disappear. Pretty soon, you're going to have applications that are now, they're kind of like created in real time. Like, just like how we asked this question, the true application is a response in a tabular format with the addition of having an Excel sheet, which you can then use standard kind of ways of how we interact with numbers, which is like a spreadsheet. But once we get that all done in real time, there's no need for like these kinds of apps, because the intelligence is the internet. And that's all we're doing. The intelligence at, say, in a Boldin is their developers and the product managers. So I'm sure they're very, very intelligent, but they don't know everything either. So with that, thank you very much for watching. This is a bit of a long video, but hopefully you stayed through most of it. And do like and subscribe. And if you have any questions, contact me directly. If you want me to share my model, I'm happy to do so. We could talk through what you're trying to achieve. But I look forward to speaking with you if you do contact me, and I'll see you in the next one. Take care.